When you move to France, you arrive polished and strong, maybe even admired from afar. You've bought the house, you've made the leap. Everyone can see that that's a brave and admirable thing to do. But none of that actually gets you friendships. It's the dent in your armor that does it, the vulnerability, the willingness to ask for help, however small, however silly it feels. Because in French culture, I believe anyway, that's the invitation. That's the sign that you're a human, and you know you are, not just the outsider who swooped in and took the pretty house at the top of the hill. When people imagine moving to France, they often picture the dream, the stone farmhouse, the morning croissants, the sunshine spilling across the hills. But behind all of that, there's something quieter and much harder: integration. And here's what I've noticed, both in my own family story and in hundreds of client journeys since. When you first move, you put on your armor. It's only natural. You want to show you're strong. You want to show you're capable. And more often than not, you don't want to bother anyone. It feels polite, it feels respectful. I believe that armor can quickly become a trap, because in France, integration doesn't come from strength, it comes from vulnerability. And the dent in your armor, the moment you let a neighbor help you, for example, is often the very beginning of belonging. Let me give you one of my favorite and probably most defining stories. When we first moved to France, my mum was driving home from Moissac, about 20 minutes away from where we lived, when she realised our Renault was running low on fuel. A bit panicked, she was running around for one of those gas canisters, and as chance would have it, one of our neighbours was actually working in the local garage, Chantal. My mum didn't completely recognise her straight away. We were still surrounded by so many new faces at the time, and so she was a little bit embarrassed. Embarrassed about running out of fuel, embarrassed about not recognising Chantal instantly, embarrassed about her French. But here's the thing. In that tiny moment of exposure, the bridge was kind of built. They worked out, despite the language barrier, both their sons were at the same school. And soon after, we were invited over for apéros at the Lestrade's house. And that one chance encounter set off a whole chain of relationships. The Lestrades became central to our life in France. Their son Thibaut remains one of my closest mates to this day. And every time I'm back in the area, there's still a seat at the table for me. All from one slightly vulnerable, slightly embarrassing moment. So for me, that's the pattern: embarrassment, exposure, and then invitation. And I've come to believe this is one of the great paradoxes of moving to France. The more you try to appear strong and self-sufficient, the longer you'll stay on the outside. But the moment you let that mask slip, you're in. Now, I've worked with both Brits and Americans making this move. You might think they're different in some ways, and it's true, they are. I guess the Brits have more established circles, expat groups, communities that have been there for decades now. They've got the buffer. Americans, on the other hand, will often arrive without that safety net, fresh ground, fewer ready-made connections, pioneering their own paths, as you might say. But here's where they're the same. Both are terrified of being a nuisance. Both apologise constantly when they have something to ask for. That apology, sorry, désolé, is the mask of self-sufficiency, and it keeps people at arm's length. So what do you actually ask? What works as icebreakers with French neighbours? I'd say lean into whatever feels natural. My dad, it was the garden. We'd taken on a place with a huge patch of land. He got far too excited, far beyond what we could manage. And our neighbour Patrick came over with his tractor a few times and blitzed it for us. That tractor did more than mow the grass. It cut a pathway into the friendship we had with his family. And then there's my sister's duck. She won a literal dead duck that was like heavy at the local tombola in the local salle des fêtes, and we had no idea what to do with it. We were invited over to my neighbour's house. The grandmother, knife skills like you wouldn't believe, and she showed us how to prepare it, portion it, freeze it. It wasn't just a cooking lesson, it was 2 hours in their world, laughing, joking, and laughing. And that's how it works. The practical ask, the cultural ask, both are equally powerful, you know? Now let's talk about the slightly depressing opposite. What if you never ask? Well, what I've seen time and time again is that those people get stuck. They stay in surface-level expat circles. They survive, of course. They even enjoy it sometimes, but they leave an enormous amount of life on the table. I don't think you're making this kind of move for that. I think back to my own family, we could have asked way more. We could have carpooled to football with the other parents. My dad could have joined the card and pétanque groups in the village. My mum could have tapped into the local swimming circle because she's an absolute machine at swimming. And that could have been a great starting point for friendships for her. But we didn't. Pride held us back at the time. And here's the truth. That pride isn't cultural. It isn't British or American. It's human. But if you don't make a conscious effort to let it go, you'll carry that armor for years. I promise you. Now, let's be honest. The French aren't always the easiest nut to crack. My wife won't thank me for saying that. You don't just walk into a boulangerie on a cold Tuesday morning in the Tarn-et-Garonne and get the same amazing welcome you'd get walking into Starbucks in San Francisco. On the outside, that shell can be stern, sometimes even cold. But here's what's so uniquely French. Once you've cracked that shell, once you've shown the dent in your own armor, the relationship you get is so much deeper. Yes, there are the huffs and the puffs that's stereotypical for the French, but once you're in, you're in. Smiles, waves, apéros at any time of the day. The generosity is wild. And I've seen this not just in my own story, but with clients and friends too. I want to use an example. I'm going to say his name's Paul. His name isn't actually Paul. Paul could also work because it begins with P. I met him at my local football team's pre-season training. It wasn't glamorous football, more French Farmers League. And I remember Paul showed up, introduced himself and asked to join. The manager panicked because of the language barrier, naturally, but Paul insisted. He said he'd muddle through. Mid-session, he came over to me and said, "Ben, I know you speak French and every fibre in me wants to lean on you right now, but that would defeat the point. I'm here to learn and make friends. So please just let me suffer, mate." And he did. Every week he turned up, he said hello to everyone, he tried, he failed, he laughed at himself, and he refused the shortcut in me standing next to him. And last summer, when I went back and asked Paul how he was doing, this was his pretty phenomenal update. He's now the chairman of the Comité des Fêtes. He plays belote, a card game, on a weekly basis. He volunteers at the local village randonnée, like the walks they organise for everyone. He's even in the local political scene. Everyone, and I mean everyone, knows him and everyone loves him. He's even taken my title of the English lad in the valley. Why? Because he took the dent. He let people see him struggling, and in doing so, he let them bring him in. So I guess here's the lesson. When you move to France, you arrive polished and strong, maybe even admired from afar. You've bought the house, you've made the leap. Everyone can see that that's a brave and admirable thing to do. But none of that actually gets you friendships. None of that gets you to that feeling of belonging. It's the dent in your armor that does it. The vulnerability, the willingness to ask for help, however small, however silly it feels. Because in French culture, I believe anyway, that's the invitation. That's the sign that you're a human. And you know you are, not just the outsider who swooped in and took the pretty house at the top of the hill. So let me finish with this. If you're preparing your move, here is my encouragement to you. Don't overthink it. Ask a neighbour where the pétanque games are. Ask about the best swimming groups. Ask how they tackle that admin nightmare at the préfecture. And when the apéro invitation comes, because it will, say yes. Give your time. Break bread. Laugh at your bad French. That's exactly where the integration happens. Not behind that big silly mask, not in the armor, but in the dent. If this resonates with you, if you want to explore more about how people like you integrate rather than just survive, I've listed our podcast and resources about life in France in the description. They're full of real stories, lessons and tools to make your move not just smoother, but richer. Because France isn't just about the house, it's about the people you share it with. And if you want that big life in France, you've got to play those big cards. Good luck to you guys. Thanks for watching. À bientôt.